Good afternoon. Welcome to the Dixon University Center. We are so glad to have you here today. I'm Randy Goen, Deputy Chancellor for the state system. We hope you're enjoying your lunch. Please do continue to enjoy your lunch as we begin the program formally. And to kick us off, we will be having a very special performance in a minute or so by a group from Millersville. So little teaser there for you. The state of the system really is a time of reflection. It's an opportunity to look back at the year we've had, the successes we've celebrated. But it's also a moment to look forward to the year, the challenges and opportunities that might come in this year. Perhaps most of all, it's a time to recognize the importance of public higher education. It's a time to affirm the mission of the state system and our 14 universities. And it's a time to honor the hard work of so many faculty, staff, and leaders such as yourself. Leaders who are dedicated to the success of our students. In a very real sense, a state of the system is really more about you than anybody else. And you're going to hear some remarks today from our chairwoman and our chancellor that highlight that. But of course, an event like this doesn't happen easily. There are a lot of hands at work behind the scenes and a lot of support from various areas. And of course, an event like this doesn't happen without the funding and the financial support from very close friends and good partners of the state system and the State System Foundation. Our sponsors for today's events, Highmark, PSECU, and M&T Bank. Please join me in thanking them for their support. Those three have truly been good partners to the system, to our foundation, and their commitment to higher education is unquestioned. So as I said before, we're going to have a special performance this morning, or this afternoon, from the Millersville University, I have to get that right, Dr. Wuba, Marauders Glee Club will kick us off with the national anthem, and then they'll perform one more number. So if you could, please stand for the national anthem, and I'll invite the Glee Club under the direction of Dr. Alan Howell.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare through the door, sailing the sinking breeze, wooing the May on a distant shore, over the tossing seas, steering by the stars above. His vessel a song of love, brothers, sing on, sing on. Errant minstrels, thus we greet you, list to our voices strong, with glad and open hearts we beat you in a festival of song. Care and sorrow now begun, brothers in song sing on, brothers sing on, sing on.
Thank you, Dr. Howell and the Millersville University Marauder Men's Glee Club. We appreciate your time here. I love this group because they are not just students, but they are faculty and they are alumni. And that is the power of the state system. That is in part a picture of the state system. The fact that multiple generations can come together, continue to support an organization that has meant so much to so many of them. So for our next speaker, really a woman who needs very little introduction. Since she's come to the board, she has certainly put her stamp on what leadership means to be a board chair. So the chairwoman of the Board of Governors, Cindy Shapiro.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you all so much for being here. You know, Randy, I was just thinking the same thing. Either that or clearly there were some people who just could not pass some exams. I wasn't sure which it was, but thank you for clarifying. It was really beautiful to see that multi-generational group from Millersville. Good afternoon to everyone, and on behalf of the Board of Governors of Pennsylvania's State System for Higher Education, I want to welcome all of you to today's State of the System address. It feels like we were just here. I can't believe a year has gone by since we inaugurated Dan, but that's where we were a year ago. So when we talk about all that's happened in this whirlwind year, I hope we all have an appreciation that it's only been 12 months and so much has gone on. We begin 2020 with real momentum, thanks to everything that has been happening, which gets us going through after a year of incredible historical progress. I have to say that I think 2019 almost quite literally was several years in the making. And why do I say this? Well, we actually technically began with our system review in 2016, and the picture that developed was full of challenges. It was full of obstacles, both of our own creation and those caused by or exacerbated by external forces. But at the same time, I think we took the attitude that we were just not going to believe that anything was insurmountable. Because we knew that for our students and for the Commonwealth, for all the citizens here, for the workforce, failure was simply not an option. And we continue to believe that. So we chose to view that as a time, instead of as insurmountable challenges, to think about it as great opportunity and to really dedicate ourselves to turning things around, to true radical transformation, and we launched what we refer to as system redesign. As you've heard me say and have heard over and over, we have three foundational pillars. One is ensuring, first defining, and then ensuring student success. based on those definitions of what that means and what the metrics are to measure our progress toward achieving that, leveraging the strengths of our universities, and changing around leadership and governance structures. And these pillars have guided our work over the last 3 years, and 2019, I think, is an example of a lot of what can be accomplished when we do have a vision, the right priorities, and the kind of leadership that we are so lucky to have. What we moved forward in 2019, I think, truly required everyone, to the extent possible, students, faculty, staff, university leaders, trustees, the chancellor, and certainly the board, to come together, to work together, to be candid, to be open-minded, and to keep in mind always frontmost what it is we're trying to do along the lines of those 3 pillars. So what we sought to do was redesign our higher education enterprise model to give us the opportunity to actually deliver on those pillars. And I think that year, this year 2019, that we're looking back on now as we move into 2020, may be remembered as really one that had sort of the most activity and took on some of the most importance since we were established as a system almost 4 decades ago. So let me describe a little bit about what that progress looked like, because, you know, as we talk in every meeting, and we are candid and open, we do talk about the challenges ahead. So I think it's important to remember, though, that we have accomplished some things and will continue on that trajectory. We froze tuition for in-state undergraduates for the first time in 21 years, only the second time in the history of the system, for several reasons. Most importantly, it was the right thing to do for our students. We needed to do that. And because it reinforced our mission to be the university system serving the Commonwealth and all of its citizens. We started down the road of retooling system governance through various means. First of all, we established the System Leadership Group, which brought a true feeling of being together in this mission to our actual internal governance. By working to move, we're not entirely successful, a lot of work to do, but we did succeed in removing a number of top-down mandates and this idea of bureaucratic decision-making, actually refocusing what it is the system office is supposed to do, and truly what the Board of Governors is supposed to do. And we are working hard to replace that culture with one that connotes accountability, shared responsibility, and inclusive input from the system and university leaders at all levels. We established a commission to foster faculty shared governance at the system level. So just to think about this, this had not existed before in the system. And I've said this before, I've worked in other higher education environments, and this is the first one I came to that had no faculty shared governance system or model that was operating at the system level. And we appointed, for the first time in PASHE's history, a faculty liaison to the Board of Governors, something that I had been wanting to do for 3 years. We worked very hard at many levels to reboot years of strife and bad relationship into one that was collaborative and transparent with our collective bargaining units. Insisting on a process called interest-based bargaining, we achieved with them multi-year contracts where we together recognize the value of our employees, we put student success first, and we acknowledge and understand the fiscal constraints that we face. And we do that collectively together. We came together in other brand new ways from across the Commonwealth to listen, to learn, to be open-minded, and to embrace a new financial sustainability policy in support of our universities so that they can leverage their strengths. We are beginning to work we're at the early stages to work with the PASHE Foundation, the system-level foundation, to bring that critical entity into the redesign conversation for the first time and talk about fund development as it relates to initiatives that we would like to accomplish as we redesign our system. The foundation continues its important work to support student scholarships, and we will now be embarking on a path where its true potential can be realized to do so much more. I would like to say that we're going to go out and raise $500 million for an endowment, so anybody that wants to, help me do that, let's do it. But of course, there's so much more work to be done. But what we accomplished in 2019 and the work ahead of us obviously would not be possible without a lot of people, a lot of very important people and organizations, and all of you here are part of that. But let me just sort of, call it out because that's very important. First and foremost, those who benefit and keep the system going at the very grassroots level, our students, our faculty, our staff. Many of you are in the room or you're watching online today. Obviously, I hope, almost 100,000 students are watching online. I'm sure you are. We're going to get incredible ratings for this whole thing and, maybe some commercial opportunities. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, we visited with you. We had focus groups, occasions to meet with you. We surveyed you. We incorporated your feedback. And I have to acknowledge that's Dan Greenstein. We got a twofer in Dan. We got an incredible chancellor and CEO, and we also got a terrific higher education management consultant. So, he does it all. But that work continues because this kind of feedback is a continuous loop. And I have to say, my fellow board members, I feel really actually very emotional about you all. You are so smart. You are so dedicated. You've been open to all of this that we've engaged in with the redesign business. And you've embraced enhanced responsibilities and involvement to get it done. I haven't studied a lot of boards, particularly system boards, but I can't imagine that we're not in the forefront of a board that knows how to be appropriately activist to get something done, not overstepping bounds, but understands that it has to lead, and you have to lead by getting involved. I'm going to go so far as to say that I believe that we are proving to be untrue and Chems's conclusion that a politically appointed board is, in and of itself, a dead end to meaningful change. That's simply not true, and we're proving that. I do want to thank Governor Wolf and his team. I do admit he's the only governor I've ever worked with closely, so I don't have a lot of basis of comparison. But again, I can't imagine a state chief executive more dedicated to PASHE and its mission and its values, and who could have been more supportive. So Meg and Allison and the rest of the team, you all listen and you work hard with us to find solutions to immediate problems and to the longer term. You deal with us as partners, and we appreciate it. I want to thank our trustees, represented here by PAC President Jeff Smith. I have a very close working relationship with Jeff. Jeff is also an example of somebody who was taking transformation of governance and leadership very seriously, and I thank you for that work. I need to thank our incredible university presidents and their leadership teams. I need to thank who continue every day. They do the work, they question us, we move forward. We have the right kind of relationship with our universities, with our leadership and your teams, and I really appreciate that as well. Our union leaders, I think, are incredible, including Dr. Ken Mash, who's with us today. We're both poli-sci majors. He continues to delve into it as a professor, so, we've got this thing going, and I really do thank you for being such a great partner as well. And all of our partners in the General Assembly who come from both sides of the aisle to support the state system, especially those who are stepping up to back redesign initiatives, irrespective of party, because they also are so smart and so devoted to our students and the Commonwealth. And a few of them, the House Education Chairman, Kurt Sonny, Representative Jesse Topper, Representative Megan Schroeder, House Appropriations Chair Stan Saylor, and Senate Appropriations Chairman Pat Brown. These are just a few of the leaders with whom we work, and we are so grateful to all of you. And of course, to the legislators who are on the PASHE board, who also look at everything from the point of view of what is best for these students and for this system. And let me thank our generous partners who make days like this possible, and they're seated here together, from PSECU, from Highmark, and from M&T Bank. Randy also thanked them, but you can't thank enough. And of course, all of our system and university donors who help to change the lives of our students every day. So, just to wrap up, I'm going to emphasize 2020 is not a time for us to slow down. We're not getting wrapped up in self-congratulations, although I think it's important to recognize we've made progress, and we need to feel good about it. But we know that we've just begun, and that's why I'm so grateful that we have Dan Greenstein, our Chancellor. This kind of transformational change is not a one-time action item. It requires commitment that stretches some years into the future. Not too long, we hope, but we know it's not going to be done overnight. It requires honesty, vision, and an executive leader to inspire the work of others toward that vision. So let me thank Dan and his staff as you come here each day to do what you're doing to contribute to the success of the system and our reboot. Keep in mind that our students are depending on you. You've done so much great work on their behalf, and please continue moving forward in this direction. And now it is my pleasure to introduce you to our Chancellor, Dan Greenstein.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, for being here. I realize at this point that actually Pennsylvania is a really big state, and I appreciate so many of you coming from so far away to be here today. And obviously, thank you, Cindy, for that introduction. I appreciate that. So, Madam Chair, members of the Board of Governors, faculty, staff, students, and our honored guests, I am delighted to be here. Cindy knows that I count the days of my employment. Today is 499, and 499 days into the role, and I am more inspired now than ever before about our mission, and I am more optimistic than ever before about our future. And I am deeply humbled to this day by the privilege of working alongside all of you in this great system. So thank you. And before I proceed, just a few words of thanks to my lifelong partner, Melissa. Last year at this time, she was a visitor here to Harrisburg, and since then, thank you for agreeing to making our lives together here in central Pennsylvania, where I know we always expected we would end up, and we're delighted to be here as citizens of this great Commonwealth. Thanks. And thanks to all of you in the room. We have accomplished a tremendous amount over the last year, and Cindy's just really touched on a few of the highlights. Together with the constituencies that we represent, we have engaged in and made very difficult decisions, and for the right reasons. A brighter future for our students and for this Commonwealth. And I want especially to acknowledge the work of the board, and the work of its chair, Cindy Shapira. Cindy's been an inspiration, as you can see why, to me, to my staff. She has become my BFF on text. She is willing to roll up her sleeves and edit any document and offer thoughts about where they should go, and I appreciate the thought partnership. This is, they talk in leadership management type circles about the importance of the relationship between the CEO and the board, and particularly the board chair. And when that next PhD is written, it'll take up, I'm sure, some of the relationship that we manage on a day-to-day basis. So thank you, Cindy. Thank you. So what is the state of our system? It is fluid. and we are at a turning point. This year, with our partners, the General Assembly, we will decide the course of public higher education in this Commonwealth. This year, we will decide whether all Pennsylvanians, regardless of race, zip code, or wealth, have an affordable pathway into and beyond the middle class. This year, we will decide whether all of Pennsylvania's communities have the healthcare workers, the business leaders, the educators, the engineers, the professionals they need to drive their economies. This year, we will decide whether millions of adults have the affordable public reskilling and upskilling options they need to maintain their relevance and their viability in a rapidly evolving labor market. This year, we will decide whether the next year's State of the System address focuses on continuing with system redesign or on a very different kind of transformation. This year. The decision is not ours alone to make. It is also squarely in front of our strategic partners who have an undeniable stake in our success, especially members of the General Assembly. Their constituents' careers, and the communities in their districts rely on affordable, relevant public higher education. Our state system has prepared for this year. We're ready. In less than 2 years, we have taken the difficult steps needed to transform, to redesign this system so that it sustainably continues its historic mission of social mobility and economic development for all Pennsylvanians. We are at last confronting challenges that have grown to existential proportion because they have been left unattended for years, and we have made demonstrable progress in 5 foundational areas. So let me review. 1, in my testimony last year to the House and Senate Appropriations Committee, on our behalf, I promised radical transparency. We have achieved that. We have opened our books to our employers, to the General Assembly, to the members of the public. We did this to show the price of education, the value it returns to our students, the challenges we face, the successes we log, and how we allocate scarce resources with what effect. 2, I promised, on our behalf, real accountability to those who pay our bills, the Commonwealth and our students. We achieved that. Last year, the Board of Governors required our 14 universities to balance their budgets while targeting measurable goals for continuous improvement in student affordability, student progression, and student success. And this year, the board will use evidence of progress towards those goals to guide its decisions about student tuition, the allocation and use of state funds, and to anchor evaluations of executive performance. 3, on our behalf, I promised the state system would not raise tuition for in-state undergraduate students, and we achieved that, as Cindy said, in an unprecedented tuition freeze enacted not to attract the attention of the press or curry favor with the General Assembly, but again, as Cindy said, because it was the right things to do for our students. And going forward, the board has asked our universities to build budgets that maintain average net price increases at or below the prevailing rate of inflation. 4, last year, I promised that we would align our costs with our revenues, and we are achieving that. How? As Cindy mentioned, we've worked in partnership with our collective bargaining units and developed multi-year labor contracts which are fiscally responsible and fair. We are leveraging our operating scale through a variety of shared services that will achieve between $80 and $120 million in cost savings and cost avoidance over the next 8 or so years. We are aligning our expenditures with diminished revenues that result from our declining enrollments. And yes, we will focus on salary and benefits because they make up 85% of our total cost. This is probably the most difficult aspect of our work, but we will not and we cannot and we must not shirk our responsibility here. 5, and lastly, on our behalf, I promised last year that we would address the challenges faced by our low-enrolled universities. Many of the accomplishments referenced above are achieving that by driving down costs and by requiring balanced budget. But there's more. In so many universities and colleges across this country, enrollment declines force cuts in the scope of degree programs and student supports, which in turn depress enrollment still further. It's a vicious cycle, and it threatens the viability of colleges and universities. But that doesn't need to happen here. Not in a system that is redesigned to share. Not in a system where faculty, staff, trustees, and board members recognize that their public obligation is to their university, their region, and to all of Pennsylvania. I'm often asked why we don't divest from financially challenged universities, closing unprofitable branches like a commercial chain would. So let me be clear about why. Because the numerous rural communities that we serve struggle to attract the healthcare professionals and educators and business and community leaders that they need to thrive. And so they depend on our universities to grow their own. Because in sharing systems, our universities can partner, even affiliate with one another in creative ways to ensure their high quality and efficiently managed operations. Because divestment from a university demonstrates its community, creating socioeconomic dislocation that is far more costly to the taxpayer of this Commonwealth than a well-run university. This is not a complicated partisan policy issue. This is a simple math problem. And because in a sharing system, a public system, we have alternatives to massive socioeconomic disruption. And we have an obligation to the people of this Commonwealth to pursue those alternatives until they are exhausted or they are proven to be ineffective. So having delivered on all of our promises for 2019 on our behalf, let me make a few more for 2020. I hope nobody's writing this down. Working together this year, we will show how students at one university can access courses and programs elsewhere in the system. Although allowing all students at all universities, irrespective of their size, to access courses in important traditional subjects like physics, modern languages, as well as in new high-demand areas, for example, in geo and environmental sciences, informatics, healthcare, and education. Working together this year, we will execute budget plans that will ensure all of our universities are financially sustainable. Working together this year, we will produce initial cost savings that result from our work on system redesign. Working together this year, we will begin to show how to disrupt the vicious cycle that threatens colleges and universities across this country. This work focuses here on the state system universities and the communities they serve and, of course, their students. But it is not solely about them, about us. This is about the future of higher education in rural America. This is about the future of historically black colleges and universities, and of minority-serving institutions generally. This is about ensuring that all Americans, not just some, have affordable pathways into the middle class, irrespective of their zip code. We are implementing a strategy. We are on a path and because the challenges we are addressing are shared across U.S. higher education, the nation is watching. If our strategy for system redesign is bold in addressing our most pressing challenges, it is also transformational because it will reimagine our system, ensuring our universities remain relevant in a rapidly changing world. So what does this transformation mean? What does it look like? It means building on and accelerating work which, as you will expect, is already well underway at all of our universities. To meet our students where they are with respect of their academic, emotional, and social preparedness. To reflect in our employees the growing diversity that we see in our students and building the cultural competencies amongst our employees so that all of our students feel properly supported and a sense of belonging. To fundamentally rethink educational programs so they connect seamlessly and easily for our students with programs in high schools and community colleges. So they connect directly not just with jobs but with careers. So they provide opportunities for adults seeking to upskill and reskill, as well as for high school graduates seeking career-relevant degrees grounded in a general education. Our system redesign is bold, it is transformational, and it is underway. We have delivered on the promises that we made for it in 2019, and I'm confident that we will deliver again in 2020 on the promises made here. But the extent of our success, it's not ours alone to determine. It depends on the committed partnership of others. Our foundations and our donors will be critical. Transformation at this scale requires investment in innovation, in upskilling our own employees, and of course in our students. And I'm delighted today to tell you that our State System Foundation is forging a path, thank you team, by establishing an innovation fund that will be dedicated to helping us identify and implement innovative practices that will improve our students' success in a sharing system. So thank you. Our partnership with employers, with schools, and with community colleges will be critical to building pathways that are relevant to today's students. Students who will spend a lifetime learning and moving continuously between education and the workforce. These conversations are already underway, they are fruitful, and where we work together and not apart, they can serve our students and the Commonwealth through profound and meaningful developments in our educational programming. But most critical of all is our partnership with the state. We have listened to and heard the concerns of our elected representatives about our cost, about our value, about our sustainability. And we have demonstrated our seriousness of purpose in responding to those concerns with real and demonstrably impactful actions and with a detailed roadmap for fundamentally restructuring this system and a commitment to being held accountable for the results of that work. In return, we have requested the investment we need to succeed, a 2% increase in our yearly appropriation for 2020 and an initial $20 million installment on the $100 million that we will need over 5 years to transform this system to become a sharing system that delivers to the people and the employers of this state. The state of our system is fluid. We're at a turning point. This year, with our state partners, we will decide the course of public higher education in this Commonwealth. We will decide whether all Pennsylvanians have an affordable pathway into and beyond the middle class, whether communities have the human capital they need to thrive, whether Pennsylvania has the talent it needs to compete with 49 other states for inward investment from employers who need an educated workforce, whether millions of Pennsylvania's adults are able affordably to remain relevant and viable in a changing job market. This year, we will determine the kind of transformation that we'll be talking about next year at this time from this podium. Out of choice, Pennsylvania ranks 48th in the nation in its funding for public higher education. The consequences of that choice are apparent in the cost of education, amongst the highest in the country, the level of our students' debt, amongst the highest in the country, and the state's struggles to attract public and private investment. They are also apparent in the severity of the challenges that are faced by our public higher education system. This can has been kicked down the road for many years. There's no more road. The state system bears a responsibility for this, yes, and we have embraced it, and we are on it. But our elected leaders share that responsibility. And so we ask them to collaborate and partner with us to support our efforts and to set this state system, and more importantly, Pennsylvania, up for success. The public system, this public system, is fundamentally transforming itself. And this year, together, we will decide what path that transformation takes. This year. Happy New Year. And thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor, and thank you, everyone, for being with us today. That concludes our event for the day. The board meeting will start around 1 o'clock. But as you leave the building today, we hope you'll stop in the lobby and pick up a copy of the latest newsletter regarding system redesign, redesigned for PA. It gives you a sort of stories and a collection of stories of how system redesign is impacting students and faculty and staff and our communities around the state. So we thank you for being with us today, and enjoy the rest of your time here.